Well, good morning, everyone. My name is David Kovach. I'm an enterprise architect with Infosys. In my role, I've been doing IT for the last 35 years, and started off as a mainframe operator, and have gone through a number of things. I currently do run a team of account CTOs and solution architects for Infosys. What I want to talk to you today about is a little bit about what we've done in terms of the relationship between SUSE and Infosys and some of the ways that we're trying to leverage that. And I want to give you a little bit of background about Infosys, a little bit of what we do to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. We'll talk a little bit about why we chose OpenStack and SUSE, and we want to talk a little bit about what we call zero distance, trying to get everything down to the front level and get ideas from the people in the trenches who are closest to the situations to try and resolve issues. And then we're going to walk through a little bit about software-defined data centers and a private cloud and our approach and how we did it using SUSE, setting up in our Bangalore facility, and then talk briefly about a couple of use cases that we're looking to apply SUSE and Infosys solution together in. So in any event, our theme around this is called Navigating Your Next, and working with our clients to help them. What's the next step for them? How do we apply what digital and the technology today can do for them, and how do we make that applicable in their business and across all kinds of verticals? Because with all of almost 1,000 customers and lots of Fortune 500 companies that we do infrastructure management services for, we run across the gamut of all the different industry verticals. So again, for us, Infosys, probably going to pass 12 billion this year in revenues. We've got more than 200,000 employees. Across, we're about 225, I think, now in terms of our global footprint for employees. We've been on quite a significant hiring binge here in the United States. We've hired about 7,500, I think, out of our goal of 10,000. And we have, like I said, clients all over the globe. We have development centers not only across India, but we've also been establishing them across the United States and working to develop what we see in the infrastructure space really is a lot with all the automation that's going on. I think a lot of the skill sets that a lot of the effort that's gone into infrastructure is shrinking by about a factor of about 2/3 to 3/4, and so we're seeing a lot more need for folks to be onshore, sitting across from the client, and the ratio of individuals, of FTEs that are onshore versus offshore. It's really going from a 20% here, 80% offshore, moving down toward a 50-50 split with a lot fewer people doing the same work that was done just a year or two ago. So what we do in terms of Infosys is we want to make sure that all of our solutions that we develop are, everything has to be done. We all talk about migrating things and migrating data centers, but the reality is it has to be application aware. And everything ends up being application centric, because if you're not moving the whole application, you're going to run into serious issues. So we also take the time to work toward moving toward business process alignment for us. And how do we go through that? How do we deal with that? How do we make sure that our processes and the things that we're doing are aligned to our customers' business so that we understand the impact when things go wrong in the infrastructure? It comes to a lot of the things that we do, a lot of enterprises end up needing, they use AWS, they use Azure, they use on-premise equipment, but it's all got to be tied together, usually in a custom fit sort of way based on their particular applications and their particular need. That's where Infosys is able to come in and help fill. So we go through and provide them a diverse variety of solutions, whether it's legacy and on-prem, doing everything from modernizing their mainframe all the way through to being able to manage any environments they have across the multiple major public cloud providers. So we can manage everything in between. So we can cover the entire diversity of the stack. We're able to set up what we call extensive infrastructure, build a private cloud for them. Because I think there's a lot to talk about moving everything to the cloud, but it's been our experience that when you talk about the public cloud, if you're talking about workloads that are up all the time, workloads that are up a majority of the time, it's really not cheaper. And it's better to be able to, if you can build environment for your clients that gives them the flexibility, gives them about 95% of the functionality of a public cloud without the security risks and without the latency issues and without the cost issues of a public cloud, then that's that's a better fit for them. While at the same time, you still have to give them access, the ability to branch out in the public cloud when it makes sense for them. So we do that with infrastructure. And the way we've designed it is to be able to go into the future, continually to move into the more software-defined data center aspects, continuing to do more automation, continuing to knock down the time it takes to resolve issues, being able to triage issues, being able to automate things. We've really gone a long way with our our hybrid cloud management platform called IMSS that goes through and actually does a lot of automation in the infrastructure space and does a lot of machine learning and does a lot of self-healing along the way. So, and then the last 2 parts of these are a guided migration and a transformation. As we go through this, we have to make sure that we've got a lot of tools available to be able to gather the knowledge about the applications and about the different parts of the infrastructure, so that when we actually move the application from point A to point B, you want to make sure that it's done in a seamless manner, so that when the migration is over, the target goal in our minds is for the business units that our customers deal with to come to we've had this happen in the past of, with a business unit coming to the CIO or coming to the IT, infrastructure director and say, hey, when are you going to move that application? I know you've got a migration coming up, but when exactly is that going to happen? And the infrastructure director was able to turn to that business partner and say, well, we moved it 2 weeks ago. And so it was so seamless that the guy didn't even realize it had already moved. So, and then the last part of this is transformation. As we go in and technologies into the environment, we have to make sure that they're transparent and that they don't cause any impact to the environment as well. So, our relationship between Emphasis and SUSE, I think we started back in 2012, if I remember right. It's been going on about 7 years now. We have a number of clients that we work together with. A lot of work being done on the SAP side for SUSE. A lot of folks moving into that. We have a global practice with them. We're both, I think we're both diamond partners with SAP. I know we are. I believe SUSE is. And we work to make sure that we can do I'm wondering, is this going to be? Yeah. Cool. We put together, we put together a hosted and managed SAP solution. We can put it into an Equinix data utilize, or NTT and SunGard, any of those providers, be able to establish a facility and be able to our customers. That just like there are folks that do the like ourselves that do the managed services, well, the data center business is a very specific niche business, and let's leave it to the guys that are really good at it. Pretty much even all the old school, IBM and HPEs and all of those guys are getting out of the DXEs. They're all getting out of the data center owning business. And then we utilize SUSE, obviously, because of all the options that they give us, be able to do a lot of, the options in SAP S4 for S4HANA are very good. Being able to do the live patching and, all of the parallel processing that we can do in the SAP environment, and other environments that helps to make the make the partnership go pretty good. So we've gone and established a whole structure around this and how we work together. We have a joint lab in Bangalore to demonstrate live use cases. That's what we're going to talk about today. We've built a private cloud solution based on SUSE OpenStack, and we launched that a year before last. And we've got dedicated folks on both sides of the aisle working to put together solutions built on SUSE with Infosys services layered on top of them. And of course, our executives are very well aligned between the two organizations, making sure that we're able to continue to move forward at a very quick pace. And if I'm speaking too fast, I have a tendency to talk fast. So, if I'm talking too fast, tell me to slow down. But, surprisingly, since I was born and raised in Kentucky, but we won't go there. Anyway, so a couple of things we would talk about. Legacy lock-in, is a big issue. I know from, even my days at, at other corporations that vendor agnostic is a big deal and big thing. It was a big deal when I worked for EDS a number of years ago. And then one of the reasons I came to Infosys was because, I wasn't have to worry about peddling a certain brand or certain, anything. And so we were able to work across the board. And the evaluation of all those products is one of the things that's led us to the partnership with SUSE. And their ability and their desire to help companies, avoid the vendor lock-in situation. I think the best thing was, it's best encapsulated, I think, with the old data centers where you used to subscribe and the provider would move you into their data center. And I had a CTO for a company down in Houston once explained to me best. He said, if I fire the maid, I don't want to have to move. And that was to me the best example of vendor lock-in and things that people want to from. So you want to be able to deal with the cost, You never know when Michael Dell's going to decide that, hey, we need more margin out of VMware, and all of a sudden your VMware license costs are go up. All of those type of situations, and so you want to try and deal with that ahead of time. And of course, at the same time, you've still got to make sure that you've got a product that you can count on, that's supportable, and that meets security requirements that you're going to need. SUSE Linux for us, and it helps us run across the the gamut because. We've got public, private, and hybrid all covered with it. And, the public and private cloud, public and hybrid cloud usage is, I think, it's going to continue to rise. I think you'll see more in with the government versions of the public cloud, which will help. But there'll still be a need for a lot of companies, either through latency issues. We're looking at one of our customers now. We're talking to them about how we might be able to build out. We're looking at building out infrastructure as a service. And while their enterprise apps are moving to the cloud, they still have a lot of manufacturing plants located across the globe. And we're looking at the infrastructure that still needs to sit in those plants. They can't move out of those plants because of network latency. And how can we implement infrastructure as a service in those facilities? So that's one of the ways that I think SUSE Linux will be helping us in the future. Okay. And then, here are some of the challenges that we run into when we go to dealing with private cloud. I mean, yes, there's lots of issues with compatibility and, keeping security alive and all of those issues. But what we find is the same thing. We find the same issue, whether it's regarding to technology currency and why are you still running Windows 2003? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you running an old version of AIX or whatever? And it always comes down to, the application guys, haven't dealt with the issue. The application won't run on anything else. You can't move it forward. And, the application teams are oftentimes so focused on getting the next set of enhancements out to the application that there's no budget, no money, and no time to go back and totally re-platform the application. So, for when you look at actual challenges, to me, the application dependency and that complexity is always going to be the number one, thing that you wrestle with as you go forward. And we work through a number of things at Infosys in terms of our application discovery and dependency mapping to be able to map out all of those dependencies, be able to unearth all of the little things that are there to make sure that when the application's actually moved, we're able to actually make sure that all those things are addressed and there's no gotchas as we go along the way. Okay, and so with OpenStack, we've got, OpenStack has done a lot of work. It's established itself as a solid platform to be able to be used for this in the marketplace. It's growing, it's going along the way. And then you still, a lot of things that'll be flexible moving into containers as it moves forward. There'll be a lot of flexibility with it. But along the way, you'll still be able to have, your cloud, for our clients, being able to control it, being able to, to use whatever hardware we need to, whether, and being able to, because just like our customers like to be able to put Infosys and its competitors every few years against each other and say, okay, who's going to give me the lowest cost? Well, I in turn take for my customers, I go through, okay, it's time to refresh the hardware. Let's make sure that we're putting all the hardware vendors against each other and make sure they know it so that our customers get the best cost. And so being able to have, the operating system and the OpenStack platform that's flexible enough to do that across whichever hardware platform we're talking about is very important for us as well. So. And then when it comes to SUSE itself, I mean, SUSE has got a lot of experience in the marketplace with this particular, with OpenStack. The hypervisor support is very extensive. Being able to do it, it comes as part of the license. You don't have to worry about paying for the hypervisor license on top of it, which are all good. The whole OpenStack is a good foundation for us to build upon when we look at, our automation stack and how we move things together, move things forward for the future in order to be able to do it. So provides the best combination of being able to get the benefits of open source while still having the supportability and the maintenance that you need in terms of being able to support it for an enterprise and not expose the enterprise to a lot of risk. So our approach, what we look at, is we basically sit down and go, okay, can we, OpenStack's kind of, look at a default position for us, but then we sit down with our particular client and go, okay, let's talk about all the issues you have. What are your security issues? What are your network issues? Let's make sure that OpenStack is the right fit. When we do that, and how do we design the model? What's the architecture going to be? Which particular vendor we're going to use? How we're going to do hyper-converged, converged, all of those options as we move forward. Being able to then, is this going to have something we're going to have to make a transition, build out an environment and slowly transition it over in a brownfield type situation? Or are we going to be able to, go the easy way and have a nice greenfield environment, which sometimes happens, but usually not so much. And then we utilize our migration factory, which goes through a number of, of iterations in terms of as I talked about, the application discovery and dependency mapping, very robust process we go through to make sure that not only that we do automated discovery, but because there is no silver bullet in the automated discovery realm, we want to make sure that we go through and we go over that data. We use the discovery tools to gather the data, and we put that into our templates and our processes, and then we sit down and conduct a little bit of what we call guerrilla warfare, urban warfare, where we get to sit down with the application team, we go through the app, we go through the data we have, verify the data's correct, we start pulling out of them, the little things like, oh, it's this one guy that's been here 20 years who remembers that, hey, there's a file transfer to this other app that you need to be aware of that no discovery tool is going to come up with. But if that transfer gets broken, it shuts down the plant and we're done. So those kind of things that you have to really dig out, and then be able to take all of those things together in terms of the complexity of the application and all of the different factors, and be able to figure out, okay, we have to group these particular applications and and all of the supporting infrastructure that goes with it. These have to move together, and that therefore becomes what we call migration waves and bundles, where we go through and map it out and go through, because you generally, it's not like the old days when we used to move mainframes from one place to another, and you'd take a holiday weekend like Thanksgiving or Christmas, and you'd shut the mainframe down and you back it up and then you'd ship. I mean, the only time I've flown on a corporate jet was me and 3,000 computer tapes out of Green Bay, Wisconsin at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I got on a plane because I was the only person. They'd ripped all the seats out of the plane except for me and the two pilots. They put the 3,000 tapes in there and they flew us to Texas, and I escorted them to the data center, and then they were, we restored them. Those days, are gone. You don't get those kind of windows anymore, and you're never going to see them again. So you have to worry about methodologies to be able to group things together. You have to do it over multiple weeks and weekends. You have to take what windows you can get, and you have to minimize the actual downtime so that you do all of the data synchronization beforehand and all of the migration of the VMs beforehand, and then finally come to the window and you shut it down, do a final sync of a little bit of the data, bring up the new VMs in the new environment, and and test out the application, so that you're down to just a couple of hours of downtime as opposed to an entire weekend of what we used to do. So anyway, talking about our journey from a software-defined data center, this is well, actually, I predate this, to be honest with you. If you consider that OS being MVS, then yes, remember that. But one physical box, one OS, one app running on it. Actually, the mainframe had multiple apps, so we won't talk about how we've come full circle, but the operating system, the app, moving into this with the hypervisors and being able to share resources and up our utilization, obviously. And now we're looking at, getting into the whole of being able to pull all the resources, being able to but the automation is not just, you've got a whole bunch of automation built into the hypervisor layer and being able to do a bunch of things because it's all virtual. But then now you've got a lot of things that we're doing on the management side of it with our cloud, our hybrid cloud management platform in terms of the automation, triage, doing self-healing, all the things that we look at moving into this software-defined data center to get away from even the most simple of, even the tasks that being able to go through and problem comes up. Now our hybrid cloud management platform searches the knowledge base for issues, looks at what was done in the past, triages the problem, takes the result of the triage, the initial things that we did where the network, I would log on to a switch and issue a few commands and look at the output. Now our cloud management platform is doing that, populating that data inside the ticket, pulling together all of the related tickets and aggregating them all together, working with ServiceNow or Remedy or whatever to make sure that it's creating a master ticket, associating all the child records with it, make sure it's documenting the master ticket with all that it's found. If there's a solution that it can execute on its own and it has been given permission to execute that solution, it will open any appropriate change tickets, get any appropriate approvals, execute the changes, close the change tickets, and update the problem ticket accordingly, and the incident record accordingly. Do all of that so that the folks at the command center only have to monitor what's happening and they only have to deal with the exceptions. It's a huge amount of automation. It's a huge reduction in mean time to repair that we're running into, and we can pull those folks back and use the analytics portion of our IMS suite to be able to start digging further into the incidents that remain to look for ways to not just develop true root cause and elimination of root causes for priority 1 and 2 tickets, but start digging into, okay, here's a ticket that the help desk gets, it only takes 30 seconds to solve, but they get, 50 of them a day. Okay, well that's 600 tickets, was that 1,500 tickets a month, right? So let's go and spend a little time automating that or making it go away, better yet, and so that the help desk doesn't get that ticket at all. And a lot of things that we couldn't do before, I like to say that since the days of the mainframes went away, that's when CMDBs being up to date went out the window, is when the mainframes, when we started moving to client server, because we ended up so many servers, so many devices that no one ever had the staff to manually keep the CMDB up to date. It was impossible. The automation that we put in place through our IMS suite enables us to finally get a handle on that, keep the CMDB up to date, and keep it accurate, and be able to have it as a useful tool as we go forward in the software-defined data center. Because you're going to have it, because the automation relies upon the data in the CMDB in order to know what's what and what's talking to what. So, in that respect, we've talked a lot about our software-defined, but we make sure that we cover all of the different all the different things that we do as a service, everything from as a service to private and dedicated cloud. Make sure we cover all of the options for what kind of data center may be needed. And then we talk about all the different, this is all the stages of it for us: architect, deploy, migrate, manage, and optimize. Okay? And then we have layers. These are our layers over here. We've got the hardware layer, because at some point you've got to have a data center where it sits in, and you got to have some hardware that it runs on, even though that can be pretty well vendor agnostic at this point. And then we work together to pull together where we've already got software defined, deliver the storage, the compute, and the and the network and security all on a virtual basis. And on top of that, we can layer different workloads, and we look at what are the different types. We try and categorize our workloads for that some of these go across customers. What's their system of record? Their SAPs, their CMDB, their ITSM tool, all those things, all the way over to specific custom systems that they've developed that run their specific business. So we make sure that we can layer all those workloads on top of it, and then managing it all as a single pane of glass, a single management suite that can actually, whether this particular workload is sitting in the private cloud, whether it's on premise on a legacy box, whether it's in a, on a public cloud, we can manage it all based on, with the one tool, and our command center can watch and monitor what's going on in the environment from an end-to-end perspective. So, any questions about our framework? Any concerns? Okay.
I have some business question. I'll ask you towards the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And then these are some of the services that we're focusing on together with SUSE. How do we look at how many of our clients could benefit from a migration away from ESX VMware to KVM? How do we look at a cloud open data center transformation for them? Those are an option. And then a big part of it for us is how do we look at, we've got a large SAP practice, and how can we work together to do transformation services? I mean, SAP has a huge mandate coming out, I think 2023, where you must be on their cloud version of SAP. So that's going to be a huge, headache, expense, challenge, whatever you want to call it, for a lot of our clients, and a huge opportunity for us along the way. So these are just a couple of use cases. We're talking about how we're able to establish a infrastructure as a service. This is just a base, being able to this is using SUSE OpenStack to manage it, whether it's on ESX or KVM, being able to stack up, and then being able to then substitute over time, and be able to to be able to work toward time of substituting out ESX or leaving ESX where it's necessary, and being able to manage the whole mix in the OpenStack environment. Okay. The other use case is about S/4HANA. How can we be able to layer this, being able to set up the same type of an OpenStack environment, but then make sure my animation's working, that we're able to layer the S/4HANA on top of that. So be able to run that in the environment for our clients. And then the last but not least, how do we move from an entire VMware environment to a SUSE OpenStack cloud environment running on KVM? We'll have so that way we can move forward and be able to provide. Obviously we're still a lot of our clients are still looking for the cost reductions. They're all being pushed, from a standpoint of being able to reduce their costs and be more competitive and being able to move faster, all at the same time. And like I said before, we talk about the old paradigm of being able to move 80% of the jobs offshore. Is automation is going to shrink that. So there's going to have to be another cost-saving paradigm that our customers are going to look for out of the Infosyses of the world, and so this is where we're moving to. Anybody have any questions? You have some questions?
Yeah, I want to ask you, when you're looking at it from a perspective of identifying your, target audiences in terms of the customers, are you looking out for the early adopters, or are you looking out for your account teams are working with some specific accounts and they have opportunities already, or is it RFP led? I just want an insight on that.
Well, I mean, we obviously, one of the purposes I had, like I said, I'm building a team of account CTOs, because not only are we doing the solution architecture and design beforehand, but once the deal is sold, I'm starting to embed an architect inside the deal to be able to spend time with the customer and understand enough about what's going on, both working with our infrastructure sales lead plus whoever is in charge of delivery for our side, and meeting with the customers to be able to understand what the needs are in their environment, to be able to bring new technologies, to bring what I call the greater Infosys to bear for that customer. And we believe that's going to help us, generate a number of opportunities in terms of, being able to provide transformational activities for our clients and be able to move forward in a way. And obviously, we prefer that those be sole source. Yeah, bring us your idea. Then obviously go through the entire RFP process to do that. But we'll be happy to go through the RFP process if that's what's necessary in order to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I guess I have no idea what time it is. I have no idea whether I finished way early or whether I finished right on time. So, okay. Well, thank you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to, I've got some cards up here if you want one, and you can take one of my cards if you got any questions. Thank you very much.